From the very first day at Gakubun Prefectural High School, a first-year student named Sakamoto managed to captivate the attention of the entire campus. Whether he's going about his daily classroom duties or simply enjoying his lunchtime, Sakamoto exudes an extraordinary sense of elegance and style that sets him apart from his peers. His every movement is infused with the trendiest flair, making him the embodiment of sophistication. But not everyone is enamored by Sakamoto's charm. In the next scene, we meet three first-year students, Action, Kenken, and Mario. They gather to discuss their classmate, Sakamoto, and their feelings toward him. Action, with a hint of bitterness, refers to Sakamoto as a stuck-up bastard, expressing his clear hatred for him. Mario chimes in, admitting that Sakamoto irritates him as well. However, there's more to Action's feelings than meets the eye. Deep down, he's envious of Sakamoto's ability to effortlessly capture the attention and interest of their entire class. The truth is, Action had his ambitions of finding a girlfriend, but those dreams have been shattered by the fact that all the girls seem to be infatuated with Sakamoto. This has fueled Action's inferiority complex, leaving him feeling inadequate in comparison. But his friends Mario and Kenken are there to offer support. Kenken assures Achan that he too possesses his unique brand of attractiveness, contrary to Action's belief that he can't compete with Sakamoto's looks. Action, in a surprising moment of companionship, compliments Mario's stylish top knot and Kenken's eye-catching blonde hair, acknowledging their charm. Inspired by their shared frustration and a desire to level the playing field, the trio devises a plan for retaliation against Sakamoto. They hope to humiliate him in public as a way to regain some sense of power and confidence. In the next scene, Akin sets up a trap for Sakamoto by placing the duster on top of the classroom door. He pretends to be having fun, but his real objective is to make him look foolish. To Action's surprise, Sakamoto effortlessly avoids the trap by catching the duster as he enters the classroom. He captures the class' attention once more, and as a result, Action's strategy fails, thus he gets frustrated. Afterwards, Action, Kenken, and Mario sneak up on Sakamoto as he uses the restroom. Kenken sprays him with water and departs with the others. Sakamoto manages to avoid getting wet while using an umbrella and doing so in style which astounds the three. Later, they throw away his desk, however, the whole class invites him to sit down with them. Sakamoto declines formally and sits on the edge of the window to attend the lecture. Action eventually decides to give Sakamoto a serious thrashing out of frustration. Later on, Sakamoto's friend Kubota tells him that the teacher has asked him to report to the science prep room after school for assistance. He proceeds and knocks on the door, but Akin forcefully pulls him inside. He asks Sakamoto which middle school he went to, and he replies Innocence Private Academy. Action gets relieved as he believes Sakamoto isn't connected to any dangerous gangs. Mario suggests stripping down Sakamoto and sending his photo to all the girls in the class. Action agrees and proceeds to unbutton Sakamoto's uniform, which makes him furious. Afterwards, he clicks his embarrassing pictures but notices the smell of a fire nearby. Much to their surprise, a fire breaks out in the room because of the cigarettes smoked by them earlier. Action rushes to the door but struggles to open it as it has been locked from the other side. Out of fear, he tries to call his senior Hayabusa for help, but the battery dies. Kenken begins looking for chemicals to put out the fire, but Sakamoto intervenes. He calmly orders everyone to stay away and begins sidestepping around the fire. Action believes he's trying to create a breeze with his constant movements and joins him with the others. The faculty members under the prep room notice the noises coming from upstairs, and the PE teacher decides to check out the situation. Later, he puts out the fire and asks Sakamoto to explain the situation. Sakamoto reveals that due to personal reasons, a fire broke out and they were unable to get out of the room. That's why he started making noises in hopes that the teachers would hear it and help them. The teacher orders Sakamoto to disclose the personal reason, and he reveals that he was teaching the other students how to use an alcohol lamp. Consequently, the teacher orders him to visit the faculty room and write an apology letter. Akin gets astonished by Sakamoto's humility and brilliance of mind. Afterwards, Sakamoto departs in a cool manner and Action develops a crush on him. In the next scene, Sakamoto notices a bird while walking in a rainstorm. Suddenly, the bird gets caught in a gust of wind and he begins to follow the bird. After passing through some hurdles, Sakamoto jumps in the air and catches the bird. He uses his umbrella as a parachute and gracefully lands on the ground. The next day, another one of Sakamoto's classmates named Sarah tries to attract the attention of the girls. He reveals that he's an amateur model, but the girls don't show any interest in him. Instead, Sakamoto's heroic performance from yesterday becomes the new gossip and Sarah gets pissed off. To become the center of attention, he decides to play a prank on Sakamoto. Later, Sakamoto frees it away. Sarah gets enchanted by his braveness, and everyone applauds Sakamoto. However, Sarah is mocked by the others for his failure to kill a hornet, but he uses this opportunity to crack a joke. Later, he reveals that he's decided to go into comedy and requests Sakamoto to pair up with him, but Sakamoto declines politely. As Sakamoto watches from afar, he notices Kubota being mercilessly bullied by a group of classmates who demand his money before forcing him to leave. Unable to ignore the injustice before him, Sakamoto steps in to cheer up Kubota. However, to Sakamoto's surprise, Kubota does something unexpected. He pleads with Sakamoto for assistance, admitting that he's in desperate need of money. Kubota confesses that he lied to his mother about needing money for school fees and haircuts, and he's now trapped in a web of embarrassment, unable to keep up the charade indefinitely. The problem solver, Sakamoto springs into action, devising a plan to help Kubota overcome his predicament. The two decide to team up and find employment at a local fast food restaurant. With their sights set on earning the money Kubota needs, they embark on their new venture. At the restaurant, they encounter Matsuyama, the employee responsible for training recruits. She informs them that if they don't have a preferred role, they'll be assigned to manage the restaurant's operations. Sakamoto, with his humble demeanor and striking appearance, manages to impress Matsuyama. She immediately assigns him to work at the front end, dealing with customers, while Kubota is assigned to the back. As they dive into their respective roles, Kubota starts to feel demotivated while carrying out his cleaning tasks. In a moment of frustration, he contemplates creating new excuses to extract more money from his mother. Just as he is contemplating his decision, a sudden influx of customers floods the restaurant, causing Kubota to put his plans on hold. As the bustling activities continue, Kubota's attention is drawn to a long queue of ladies who seem to be flirting with none other than Sakamoto. It's no surprise that Sakamoto's charm extends beyond the walls of their high school. While Kubota silently observes the scene, Matsuyama assigns him the task of making fries for the customers. Initially fumbling with the task, Kubota's determination kicks in, and he gradually begins to master the art of cooking fries. To his delight, Matsuyama notices his efforts and applauds his progress. With a newfound sense of accomplishment, Kubota becomes even more motivated and decides to put in even greater effort. Over the following days, Kubota continues to learn how to prepare all kinds of fast food, and his excitement grows with each new skill he acquires. He feels ecstatic about his progress and newfound abilities. A few days later, Kubota meets Sakamoto in the staff room with his face glowing with joy. Kubota can't contain his excitement as he informs Sakamoto that today is his first payday. However, he admits that he's unsure about how to spend his hard-earned money. Kubota shares his desire to use the money to have his hair straightened, wanting to try something new and enhance his appearance. Meanwhile, Sakamoto surprises Kubota with his plans for spending his paycheck. In his unique way, Sakamoto reveals that he intends to invest in a new protractor. It's a lighthearted moment that showcases Sakamoto's unique perspective on life and his unwavering commitment to being exceptional in everything he does. Later, Action, Kenken, and Mario go to the restaurant, but Action becomes agitated when placing his order. Kenken cheers him up and he reluctantly asks Sakamoto to smile for a takeaway order. On the other hand, Kubota is startled as he notices his bullies approaching the restaurant. He tries to conceal himself, but they spot him as they give their order to Sakamoto. They tell him to meet them after his shift in Gappun Park and threaten to kill him if he doesn't. Meanwhile, they receive their order from Sakamoto, but he purposefully keeps the straw and dipping sauce out of reach. The scenario then changes to the park, where the bullies complain about the lack of straw and dip sauce. Kubota appears unexpectedly, and they direct him to quietly hand over his salary. To their shock, he talks back to them and refuses to hand them his hard-earned money. As a result, they start beating the crap out of him, but Sakamoto quickly intervenes. He defeats them using the straw and the dipping sauce as his hidden weapons. Following that, he urges Kubota to claim his revenge, and he employs smashing techniques to beat them, eventually leading them to flee. The following day, Sakamoto's classmate Aina tries to get his attention, but initially is unsuccessful. It is revealed that she is well-liked by the boys but resented by the girls. She intends to use the art of seduction to make Sakamoto fall in love with her. Later, she asks him to tutor her so she can invade his personal space. To keep a small gap between them, she then moves to sit on his left side. She discovers Sakamoto is ambidextrous, much to her amazement. As a result, she is compelled to sit facing him and employs the second technique, addressing him by his first name. She inquires about his first name, but he is not permitted to say it on the broadcast. She then makes an effort to mimic his actions in an attempt to develop a sense of connection between them. Unfortunately, she is unable to keep up with his pace and is forced to resort to the third technique, walking away from him. She moves away from him, but his lack of interest in her fuels the fire, and she becomes irritated. Later, she employs yet another psychological trick by inviting him to play kakuri with her. Kakuri is a popular Japanese recreational activity in which ghosts are summoned to ask them questions about the future. Yaji and Tanaka, the hyena girls, suddenly join her and Sakamoto decides to sit and watch their game. Sakamoto is taken over by the demonic spirit Kakuri. Following a series of questions, the spirit discloses that he will only leave Sakamoto's body if they can construct a sacred arch for him right now. If they fail, he will take Sakamoto's body back to the mountains. Yaji and Tanaka plan to construct the arch out of desks, but Aina refuses to cooperate. When a desk is about to fall on Yaji, Aina leaps in and saves her. She ultimately agrees to assist them, and they successfully build an arch. Fortunately, Kakuri's spirit departs from his body, and Yaji and Tanaka form a bond of friendship with Aina. When the three of them leave, it is revealed that Sakamoto was Oak the entire time and was merely conducting an experiment. Action is insulted by Maruyama, the vice president of the second-year delinquent group, and is forced to conduct errands for him. Hayabusa, the president of the delinquents club, asks that he stop picking on the first years so regularly. Maruyama, on the other hand, justifies himself by claiming that he is only teaching them grit and understanding. Nonetheless, Hayabusa instructs Maruyama to avoid selecting the improper technique to foster the initial years, which irritates him. Nevertheless, Maruyama reveals that he met a charming first year in the corridor yesterday and has already assigned him an errand. He blows a whistle to summon the errand boy, who turns out to be Sakamoto. Sakamoto enters in style and quickly creates a lunch-packed variety platter for seniors, filling their tongues with brilliance. Later, Kubota, who now has straight hair, informs Sakamoto that the seniors are using him as an errand boy only. However, Sakamoto believes it's all part of building endurance and insight in the next generation. Kubota insists that he's nothing more than a tool for convenience for them. Still, Sakamoto decides to serve them because they are older than him. Adding more to the ongoing situation, he's summoned by Maruyama, who orders him to get a drink for him. Sakamoto delivers him a drink with an original blend of flavors prepared exclusively by him. Maruyama realizes that Sakamoto can be a useful errand boy and later orders him to lend his PE clothes to him. Much to his surprise, Sakamoto takes his measurements to prepare a brand new PE uniform. He delivers him a uniform made from natural materials that absorbs far more sweat than normal PE clothes, and Maruyama becomes the center of attention. Later, Sakamoto polishes his shoes, sits in his class, gives him a massage, shaves his beard, and trims his nails. As a result, Hayabusa informs Maruyama that he has become a lazy sloth who is overly reliant on the first years. Following that, Maruyama summons Sakamoto but recognizes that he is exhausted from giving him too many orders. This time, he instructs Sakamoto to serve him on his own accord from now on and advises him to consider things that will make his life easier. Later in the restroom, the toilet paper runs out and Sakamoto pops out of nowhere with a roll of toilet paper on his arm. Adding to the disorientation, Sakamoto then heats Maruyama's shoes, making him feel uncomfortable. He refrains from wearing the heated shoes and an idea pops up in Sakamoto's mind. Suddenly, he brings a trolley to board him, but Maruyama manages to run away and hides himself in the storage room. When he finds Sakamoto's blazer hanging on the window, he calls Hayabusa for assistance, but his phone disconnects. He becomes terrified and puts his hands over his ears to protect himself from hearing any sounds. Later, he runs across Sakamoto, who has set up a room for him. Above all, he offers to perform a lullaby, but Maruyama freaks out and fires him. Action is surprised the next day when Maruyama purchases his cafe bread. Sakamoto, on the other hand, notifies Kubota that he has been fired by Maruyama. It is later revealed that Kubota's mother is in love with Sakamoto. Kubota asked Sakamoto to be his tutor 2 weeks earlier, and he agreed. When they arrive at his house, Sakamoto handed an assortment of shells to Kubota's mother as a gift, and she fell in love with him. She even purchased a facial massager to improve her appearance. As a result, Kubota feared that his family might come apart in this manner and asked Sakamoto to hide from his mother, to which he consented. Kubota realizes while studying chemistry that he has left his textbook at school. He tells Sakamoto to stay at his residence while he goes to the school to get the textbook. Sakamoto's mother discovers his shoes and realizes he is at home. She rushes into the room, but Sakamoto quickly hides himself. Following that, they engage in a game of hide and seek, which Sakamoto consistently wins. He somehow convinces her that he has left the house, and she begins to cry. She turns on the television and begins watching a film about Chorizo-chan, the actor who resembles Sakamoto. Sakamoto devises a strategy and shows her a video of himself telling her that he is unable to be with her. While Kubota arrives at home and hugs her, she realizes Sakamoto is out of her reach. She eventually recognizes that she can't be with Sakamoto. Mitsukakuta, the PE teacher at the school, is in charge of closing the school gate. He reveals his intention to punish Sakamoto for constantly arriving at the last minute. Today, he is certain Sakamoto will not arrive in time and begins closing the gate. Later, he spots him sprinting towards the gate with a bamboo, so Kakuta deduces that Sakamoto will vault over the barrier with the bamboo. He rushes at him to stop him from climbing over, but Sakamoto drops the bamboo and swiftly enters through the gate with an elegance that surprises him. Later, he becomes enraged because he believes Sakamoto is making fun of him by constantly turning up at the last minute. He wants to find a means that will surprise him while simultaneously punishing him. Fortunately, another instructor notifies him that her students have recently breached numerous rules and committed violations. She asks him to look after them, and he gladly agrees. He recognizes he hasn't been able to reprimand Sakamoto since Sakamoto usually catches him off guard. Sakamoto, on the other hand, is still a student, and there is little doubt that he has broken a rule or two. He resolves to identify Sakamoto's weak point and chastises him in the disguise of guidance counseling until he is unable to stand. Later, he discovers Sakamoto consenting to follow Akshan and his group on a strange mission. He becomes aware of the smoke and the odor of tobacco emanating from their group behind the wall. He rushes to capture them but discovers them playing with water bubbles. Akshan praises Sakamoto's skills and reveals he has stopped smoking cigarettes as now he loves to blow water bubbles. Later, Kakuta criticizes other classmates for slacking off during cleaning duty. Fortunately, he finds Sakamoto doing the same thing and decides to reprimand him, but another student named Mei steps in. She informs him that Sakamoto is sweeping the impossible-to-reach ceiling. What's amazing is that he's sweeping while gracefully dodging the flying dust. Kakuta falls in love with the sight since it reminds him of snow falling. Following that, it is discovered in the faculty room that he has caught a cold. He blames Sakamoto and vows to find an opportunity to reprimand him. Later, when teaching biology, he observes the silence in his class. When he decides to check on Sakamoto, he discovers him performing a dinner show in the middle of the lecture. To make matters worse, Sakamoto begins eating plain rice in Kakuta's class, which irritates him. He suspects Sakamoto is exploiting the health class to make up for the sauce with the rice. To put his theory to the test, he instructs everyone to move on to the reproduction chapter. Following that, he continues teaching sexual reproduction while Sakamoto takes his bite. He inquires about the flavor of rice, to which he responds that it lacks a little spice. Kakuta interprets what he's saying and accuses him of being a pervert. He then directs him to go stand in the hall. Later, he witnesses Sakamoto feeding rice grains to a starving bird. Kakuta feels ashamed since he incorrectly labels Sakamoto a pervert and begins crying as a result of his humility. The following day, Kakuta leaves the school gate open and waits for Sakamoto. Still, he arrives at the last minute and glides between his legs to enter the building, leaving him in surprise. Sakamoto is later paired with Megumi and Kana during the cooking lesson. They are about to make a salad when Kana spots a snail in the lettuce and screams. The news of the snail causes commotion in the classroom, but Sakamoto elegantly sprays salt and sugar on the snail, concealing its existence and later securely releasing him. The teacher then directs everyone in the art class to team up with anybody they decide and draw at each other's faces. Suddenly, all the girls are ready to fight over him, but Aina triumphs without engaging in any combat. She waits excitedly for Sakamoto to finish painting her face, but the results startle her. When he shows her the image, she recognizes that she resembles a vicious orangutan. This hurts her heart, but Yaji suggests she turn the photo around. Aina is relieved when she discovers he has sketched her like an angel. Adding more to the ongoing situation, a fire breaks out in the science prep room. The teacher advises everyone to carefully exit the building as soon as possible. Later, it is revealed that everyone has been evacuated except Akshan. Mario recalls that Akshan was in the bathroom and Sakamoto proceeds inside the building to save him. He dampens himself with a bucket of water and covers his face with a piece of cloth. Following that, he quietly crawls to the bathroom and encounters Akshan, who is completely oblivious to the scenario. Regardless, he successfully rescues him and subsequently leaps out of the building with a homemade parachute, startling everyone. Later, during summer vacation, Akshan, Kenkin, and Mario complete digging a pitfall in the middle of the school grounds and hide. Following that, they witness Sakamoto approaching the pitfall in his uniform and he falls beneath it and disappears. After 3 days, the trio inquires Kubota about Sakamoto's location, to which he responds negatively. He is confident that Sakamoto can get out of any circumstances and informs the group that they are the ones being manipulated by him. Akshan gets mad and orders the others to start searching for him. When they question the locals about him, it is revealed that he was out performing errands a few days ago. However, they are unable to locate him and abandon their search later that evening. Afterwards, while sitting on the school grounds, they witness a child who falls into the same trap and vanishes. However, the child reappears and notifies his mother about a hole beneath the pitfall. Akshan discovers Sakamoto's button near the pitfall, but drops it in the hole. He believes Sakamoto utilized the hole to travel to the other side of the world, and he is currently in Brazil. He also descends to find him. Sakamoto, on the other hand, collects his uniform from the dry cleaner and confesses that he's been working hard to improve the city's quality of life. The scene then cuts to the pitfall, where Action discovers that the hole wasn't as deep as he anticipated. Suddenly, Sakamoto arrives and reveals that he was the one who dug the hole. He assumed they were constructing a hot spring and wished to contribute. Sakamoto is cheered on by all of the females during a softball throw. Following that, he executes his throw and unintentionally throws the softball into Kubota's face, causing him to collapse. Later, Kubota awakens with a bleeding nose and Sakamoto assists him in keeping his head elevated. Sakamoto abruptly tears up his t-shirt in a dramatic style to stop the bleeding. He performs medical treatment and Kubota's bleeding stops. However, witnessing him without a t-shirt leads all the girls to start screaming in awe. Later, it is shown that Hayabusa is highly regarded by all of the delinquents because he's a good fighter and a clever guy. The delinquents believe he's the coolest guy in school. Suddenly, Hayabusa spots a large group of girls gathered in the school corridor. He's astonished to learn that the gathering is for Sakamoto. After his walk, all the girls go crazy and want him to sign their shirts. He remembers that Sakamoto was once Maruyama's personal errand boy. Maruyama notices Sakamoto at the last second and starts to throw up out of fear. As a result, Hayabusa demands he reveals to him everything he knows about Sakamoto, and he replies that Sakamoto is dangerous. The first-year delinquents agree with Maruyama and notify Hayabusa that Sakamoto is also well-known among them. However, Hayabusa disregards Maruyama's advice and chooses to pay a visit to Sakamoto. Kubota, on the other hand, inquires Sakamoto about a fresh haircut proposal. He implies that his head resembles a florist's cultivating kit he saw the other day. Kubota becomes perplexed and confesses that his mother wants him to get a natural haircut, but he prefers something more trendy. Sarah appears unexpectedly and tells him to not get a trendy haircut while showing him a glimpse of his buzzing sides. Suddenly, Hayabusa arrives and enters the room in an intimidating manner. He violently pushes Sarah out of his way to discuss with Sakamoto. Afterwards, he tells him to lend him his face for some time, but Sakamoto takes it literally. He creates a cast of his face and hands it to Hayabusa, which confuses him. Hayabusa believes Sakamoto is trying to mock him, while the girls of the class become eager to get their hands on the mold. Suddenly, they attack Hayabusa and he concludes that Sakamoto already rules his class. Afterwards, he destroys the mold by stepping on it, which breaks the expectations of all the girls. Then he challenges Sakamoto to meet him after school at the river under track 2 and leaves. This time he gets angry and promises Kubota he'll take revenge for him. He finally accepts Hayabusa's challenge and later meets him at the river under the track. The duel begins and Hayabusa rushes at him with full speed, but a police officer interrupts them. However, Sakamoto covers it up by saying they were playing a balancing game called pushing sumo. The officer gets intrigued and reveals that he used to play pushing games a lot back when he was young. Overwhelmed with excitement, he allows them to continue and sits down to observe their match. Much to Hayabusa's surprise, Sakamoto changes his stance from defensive to offensive. Hayabusa instantly attacks him to avoid getting any damage, but Sakamoto dodges his attack. The officer reveals that Sakamoto used a feint he pretended to push and then pulled back instantly. He believes brute strength isn't everything and the fight can also be won by using the opponent's strength against them. Still, Hayabusa decides to stay on the offensive and changes his stance to a basic boxing style. The officer concludes Hayabusa is sticking with the pushing-only strategy. Hayabusa performs a few jabs, but Sakamoto effortlessly dodges them and uses centrifugal force to create some distance between them. Then he switches to offensive and both of them exchange a series of blows with each other. The fight reaches a stalemate, but Hayabusa reaches his limit. The delinquents try to interfere, but Hayabusa condemns them. He announces that he'd rather die instead of using underhand means to win the fight. Sakamoto decides to end the fight and uses his secret technique, standing attention. He stands up straight like an antenna, which leads everyone to believe that he's trying to call down lightning. Despite reaching his limit, Hayabusa continues to exchange blows with him. The first-year delinquents get scared and confess their crimes. Sakamoto decides to end the fight and suddenly a taxi arrives out of nowhere. He lightly pushes Hayabusa into the taxi and tells him he cannot let him catch a cold in his presence. Hayabusa realizes Sakamoto was not trying to call down lightning, instead he was trying to call a taxi. Afterwards, Hayabusa accepts his defeat and Sakamoto, along with the first-year delinquents, accompanies him in the taxi. The delinquents apologize to Sakamoto and Hayabusa. Moreover, Hayabusa offers to settle the damages with money and Sakamoto takes him to a shop to buy some ingredients for dinner. Later, Hayabusa along with his first-year delinquents arrive at Kubota's house and apologize to him. Hayabusa gives him a lot of food ingredients as a token of apology. Kubota accepts the apology and invites them to a wakame party at his home. Later, while they're enjoying the party, Sakamoto observes them silently from the window. The next day, Sakamoto submits the health reports of his class to the nurse. She praises his punctuality and quality of work. However, she believes Sakamoto has a fever and tells him to lie down in the infirmary. Sakamoto runs away to the home economics class and later comes out wearing a green onion tie. At the end of the school day, a group of 3 elementary school students decide to play a game. Their leader instructs them to continue kicking rocks until they get home. The game will be over if the rock gets lost or falls into the water. They run past a group of elementary school girls while kicking the rocks constantly. Suddenly, the leader notices Sakamoto doing the same thing at a high level of speed. Sakamoto dribbles past everyone, effortlessly impressing the other 2 while the leader gets jealous. He believes Sakamoto has the advantage of having long legs. Out of frustration, he starts running at full speed, but his rock falls into the water. The same thing happens with the other 2, and they realize the street is not for beginners. They notice that Sakamoto is having a hard time as well, but suddenly he jumps over the fence and starts dribbling the rock while running in a tilted manner. The elementary boys get shocked and realize that high school guys are amazing. However, the leader gets gloomy because of his failure and the other 2 console him. The next day, the elementary boys play another game. They maintain their balance to walk on the white line on the side of the road. It is revealed that the person who steps off the white line will fail. Suddenly, they find Sakamoto, who's doing the same thing this time as well. The leader gets serious and strictly orders the other 2 to prevent themselves from stepping off the white line. They begin following him everywhere he goes, and later Sakamoto jumps over a man to avoid stepping off the white line. The elementary boys get impressed and do the same thing. After following him for a while, they cross through the city's supermarket and the bridge. The boys get fascinated by the dignified stance of Sakamoto, and they witness a baseball game while passing through the grounds. Later, it gets dark and it is revealed that the elementary boys walked past their homes ages ago. Suddenly, the white line ends and they stop along with Sakamoto. 2 of the elementary boys conclude it is the end. However, their leader notices a white stop sign. The leader believes Sakamoto can directly jump towards the sign, but unfortunately, it is beyond their reach right now. Sakamoto notices his gloomy face and hands him toilet paper as a parting gift. The leader thinks Sakamoto is making fun of him and pushes the toilet paper away. He vows that when he gets bigger, he'll make the jump to the stop sign. Surprisingly, Sakamoto's toilet paper opens up a new path for them. Sakamoto reveals this path is called a toilet red carpet and starts walking again while the elementary boys follow him happily. Sakamoto reaches his destination, the local supermarket, where a standing buffet party is being held on the first floor food court. Suddenly, the leader of the elementary boys notices his mom and runs away. However, before that, he requests Sakamoto for his autograph. The next day, Fujita Megumi, the first-year representative from Class 1 to 2, reveals her undisclosed hobby. It is revealed that she's a stalker of Sakamoto and has a hobby of secretly taking his pictures. She thinks she is dull and lives in a different world than Sakamoto. She doesn't care if her feelings reach him or not. That's why capturing him with her camera is enough for her. While observing his pictures, she notices a ghost of a woman. The next day, Kana asks Megumi if scary stuff bothers her, to which she replies negatively. Afterwards, Megumi notices Sakamoto struggling to open a lunch pack. She focuses on the lunch pack and realizes that it is already open. She's pretty sure she won't be able to live happily if something ever happens to Sakamoto. Later, after the class is over, she decides to tell him the truth and stops him. Suddenly, she starts having second thoughts, as informing Sakamoto about the danger he's in means she have to expose her secret hobby. She can't convince him without showing his pictures, which might creep him out. Because of her hurry, Sakamoto apologizes and leaves while she stands idle. Suddenly, the cleaning cart automatically approaches Sakamoto and Megumi warns him. Luckily, he manages to dodge it in time and then jumps in it to use it as a means of travel. Megumi now becomes sure that a poltergeist is out there to kill Sakamoto. She vows to inform him about the danger one way or another. Later, she pretends that she's taking a survey and asks him if any strange things have happened around him recently. He replies that everything's fine except Kubota's hair, which has grown recently. Megumi is now sure that he is unaware of the situation. She wonders how she'll be able to inform him about the danger, and suddenly, Sakamoto notices a running faucet. He finds creepy long hair in the faucet and, to Megumi's surprise, washes it and runs away to Kubota to give him hair extensions. Adding more to the ongoing situation, Megumi reveals the truth to Kubota. Surprisingly, Kubota also believes that Sakamoto is associated with some sort of supernatural phenomenon. However, he thinks that it might be natural for Sakamoto and unnatural for them. Nevertheless, he informs her that showing Sakamoto's pictures to him is the only way to make him aware about the danger he's in. Above all, Kubota tells Megumi that there's something common between her and the ghost. Later, Megumi feels violated and notices Sakamoto playing butt sumo. She immediately starts clicking his pictures, and that's when the truth hits her. She realizes that unlike Aina, she can only see Sakamoto from the shadows like the ghost. Suddenly, she notices a message conveyed by the ghost in his recent pictures. She manages to decipher it, and it is revealed that the ghost is saying, "I like you" to Sakamoto. The next day, she discloses everything to him, but initially he doesn't show any response. Afterwards, he calls her to help him with photocopies. Sakamoto prints copies of his photo for the ghost, which say thank you. Megumi gets surprised, and later it is revealed that the ghost stopped showing up anymore. Fortunately for Megumi, she can now openly capture Sakamoto's pictures. Action gets kicked out of the adult section in the movie store. Later, he finds Sakamoto in the movie section surrounded by the girls from their class. It is revealed that Sakamoto is looking for a movie called My Summer with Chirp Soup for his school homework. Much to his surprise, Akin overhears Sakamoto and finds the movie before him. Afterwards, he offers him an opportunity to trade My Summer with Chirp Soup for a forbidden disc. Therefore, he wants Sakamoto to get him a movie that's hidden in the back of the section. Mario hands him a phone to use for instructions and reveals that the three of them will back him up. Kenkin shows him a rental card borrowed from his adult brother. Sakamoto realizes that the trio wants him to rent an adult movie for them from the 18+ section. Action tries persuading him with Chirp Soup, and to his surprise, Sakamoto agrees. He believes it will be a warm-up for his homework and removes his uniform to disguise himself as an adult. Following that, Mario urges him to enter the adult sector as soon as he notices a gap in the curtain. Sakamoto cautiously walks forward, circling all of the shelves. However, it appears that by circling the shelves, he is in fact creating a fresh air current. Suddenly, the trio finds a brief opening and concludes Sakamoto has gained access. Later, Action realizes Sakamoto is taking longer than normal to return. Kenkin begins to suspect that Sakamoto may have less room to create fresh air currents, which frightens Action. Simultaneously, Sakamoto emerges from the adult section with all of the material required by the three. Following that, Mario informs him that three of their classmates are hidden on this floor. One in the Japanese movie section, one in the Western movie section, and one in the CD section. He advises him to turn left at the sci-fi and mystery regions and proceed through the Korean section to make it to the register. Sakamoto successfully avoids Tanaka and Yaji by shifting into the Korean section. Tragically, he discovers Kubata's mother in the Korean segment starring her favorite artist, Chan Chorizo. He bypasses the Korean part and makes an attempt to flee through the anime section, but runs into Aina. She calls him, and as a result, Yaji and Tanaka join up. They ask him to show them the films he rented, but he utilizes his putting that aside strategy to handle the problem. Akshan and his companions realize Sakamoto utilized the robot dance to move the subject down a conveyor belt. The girls leave to find an album cover for him, and he takes advantage of the chance to successfully evade them. He finally makes it to the final obstacle, the cash register, where he must present himself as an adult. Suddenly, he sketches something on his wrist, and Akshan and the others are relieved to see that the cashier is an absolute novice. Unfortunately, the boss appears during Sakamoto's turn and decides to deal with him. He asks him for clarification of what he wants, and Sakamoto confidently adds more to the stack. Afterwards, he requests him to show his adult card, and it is revealed that the card says Sakamoto is 27 years old. The boss tells him he looks like a high school student, but Sakamoto covers it up by using his fake wristwatch, which he drew earlier. He pretends he's running late and tells the boss to hurry. Fortunately, the boss fails to read Sakamoto and passes him. Later, Akin executes the exchange between the adult movies and Chirp Soup with Sakamoto. He offers Sakamoto to join him as a token of appreciation, but he politely declines and runs away. Consequently, Akin throws away the adult movies in the return box and decides to wait till he's older enough. The next day, Sakamoto single-handedly beats Sarah and his other class fellows in a dunk contest. Afterwards, it is revealed that 3 days ago, Sarah suggested everyone to work together so they can shake Sakamoto's standing to impress the girls. The scene then shifts to the sports meet where the bread-eating race competitors are ordered to gather at Block B. Sakamoto's class fellow firmly sets up his bread by himself so it doesn't get loose. In reality, he intends to embarrass Sakamoto to the fullest in front of this huge crowd. The race begins and Sakamoto instantly takes the lead. Afterwards, he tries pulling the bread, but instead gets stuck looking like a fish on a hook. On the other hand, the other competitors reach the bread. Suddenly, Sakamoto uses the same technique used by the alligator to tear apart his prey called death roll. Consequently, he manages to break free and starts running towards the goal line. He notices that his competitors are struggling to pull down the bread. That's why he breaks his bread in half and shares it with them. As a result of which, he becomes everyone's favorite player. Afterwards, during the first-year group gymnastics of boys, Sarah informs the others that Sakamoto will be on top in the next formation. He suggests they use it as a perfect chance to humiliate him publicly, and they agree. Later, Sakamoto successfully climbs on top until the others try dropping him. Despite his unstable position, he manages to stand like the Leaning Tower of Pisa, and all the girls start flocking him. Everyone begins to give up, but Sarah assures them he'll humiliate Sakamoto during the co-ed relay. Later, it is revealed that Yaji has been chosen to take the baton from Sakamoto. The last game begins, but Sakamoto's untied shoelaces cause him to fall on the ground. He recalls that Sarah was the one who tied his shoelaces and gets a bit furious. Suddenly, he changes his form and starts running like a cheetah. Afterwards, he gives the baton to Yaji, but it slips from her hand. It is revealed that the baton was slick with Sakamoto's saliva. Despite falling behind, Yaji doesn't give up and starts running with tears in her eyes. Suddenly, Sakamoto requests Sarah to take control of the situation. Yaji hands the baton to Sarah and he starts running while undressing himself at the same time. Later, Yaji apologizes to her friends for ruining their chances to win the sports meet, but they reply positively. It is revealed that Sarah intentionally undressed himself to save Yaji from being the center of embarrassment. Later, Sakamoto praises Sarah's efforts and disappears while Yaji tells him that he's a cool guy. For the upcoming festival, Hayabusa prepares a cotton candy machine from scrap metal. Maruyama believes it's useless for them to run a food stall to pander to commoners. However, Hayabusa replies that they have the right to enjoy the festival as well, even if it takes them out of character. Suddenly, Action asks Hayabusa if it's okay to invite Sakamoto on the festival day. He's positive that he wouldn't notice a cotton candy stand lying around, but Maruyama intervenes and denies. Much to their surprise, Hayabusa gives him the permission to invite Sakamoto. Moreover, he discloses that he's personally interested in him too, and suddenly Fukase returns. He reveals that he's now back in town and violently forces Hayabusa to tell him about Sakamoto. However, Hayabusa refuses and he smashes his face in the cotton candy machine. The scene then shifts to Sakamoto's class, where Megumi advises everyone to work a little harder for the cultural festival tomorrow. However, Marita and Yasuda demotivate her by revealing that no one comes to see the class displays. Instead, they disclose that they're excited about the third year's play. Mai informs them unfortunately food and drinks aren't allowed at this school. To make matters worse, first years are limited to displays, and that's the only thing they can do during the festival. Megumi is positive that if they successfully manage to design a unique display, everyone will come to see it. Afterwards, Marita and Yasuda mock their balloon display, but Sakamoto intervenes. He instantly turns into Yeti, a legendary primate on the other side of the curtain. Surprisingly, Megumi concludes that the view of its silhouette looks tranquil. Consequently, Mai orders everyone to use curtains in order to make more tranquil figures. However, it is revealed that most of their balloons floated up after they filled them with helium and won't come down. Therefore, Megumi suggests gathering the balloons on the floor while Marita and Yasuda sit idle. Suddenly, Sarah wakes up and notices the mystery circles on the ceiling prepared by Sakamoto. Everyone gets excited and decides to be flexible with the changes. Afterwards, Megumi puts a flashlight and hat-looking bulb to make it appear like a UFO, but no one shows any interest. Moreover, Marita and Yasuda start laughing at her and mock her. Later, Sakamoto rubs it on his head to make it look like a UFO, while Marita and Yasuda get embarrassed. They decide to leave, and Mi insults them by calling them useless and morons. Later, they start sulking and blaming Sakamoto for their insult, and afterwards they meet Fukase. The next day it is revealed that Class 1 to 2's balloons have been destroyed. Adding more to the ongoing situation, Sakamoto has been blamed for this cause, and his posters are displayed all over the school with a reward of 10,000 yens. On the other hand, Fukase informs everyone that capturing Sakamoto is just a game to make the cultural festival more exciting. Suddenly, Sakamoto runs away to evade the delinquents, and they start chasing him. Back in Class 1 to 2, the girls refuse to believe that Sakamoto popped up the balloons. Megumi thinks it could be Marita and Yasuda, but they arrive in class with lots of balloons. Afterwards, they apologize for their behavior yesterday, and Mi orders everyone to start working on the display. Meanwhile, in order to hide himself from the delinquents, Sakamoto enters the third year's play while Fukase calmly enjoys the scene. Afterwards, the delinquents enter the theater and start searching for Sakamoto. Unfortunately, Fukase exposes Sakamoto's hidden location and he gets cornered by them. To everyone's surprise, Hayabusa appears out of nowhere with his delinquents to aid Sakamoto. Afterwards, he informs him to visit the landing in the north building later. Later, Maruyama warns Hayabusa that Fukase would kill him if continues opposing him. However, being a man of honor, Hayabusa reveals he's ready to reap the results even if he ends up sinking to the bottom of Tokyo Bay. Suddenly, Sakamoto arrives and Hayabusa informs him about Fukase. He discloses that he's a third-year student who has failed grades. What's more disturbing is that he's in his mid-30s and had 2 divorces. Usually, he doesn't come to school, but when he does, he sets up some kind of game. These games are meant to erase people from the school, one by one. Moreover, the people he chooses as his targets are popular kids. Fukase generally doesn't get his own hands dirty, but once he finds his pawn, he finds the weakness in their psyche and uses it to control them. Hayabusa orders Sakamoto to get back to his classroom because Fukase's methods are heartless. Sakamoto returns to his classroom, and everyone gets surprised. Above all, Morita and Yasuda defend Sakamoto's innocence, but he runs away. Later, an unknown girl named Echo arrives outside Class 1-2 and discloses that she destroyed the balloons. Morita and Yasuda get flustered, but Eiko insists that she's the one to blame. Suddenly, Morita and Yasuda panic and reveal themselves. Much to their surprise, Eiko is revealed to be Sakamoto, who was using helium to change his voice. Morita and Yasuda confess they were the ones who popped all the balloons because Mii kicked them out. Afterwards, they grab the Yeti and threaten to destroy it, but Sakamoto intervenes. He prepares a gun out of a balloon to pop some balloons on Yeti, which shocks them. Later, it is revealed that the sunlight reflected off Kubota's hand mirror popped the Yeti balloons. Adding more to the ongoing situation, Morita and Yasuda get embarrassed and apologize to everyone. Afterwards, Sakamoto decides to trust them since they have tiny balloons growing on their arms, and Megumi orders everyone to get to work. Sakamoto tells her there's no need to do anything and calls Hayabusa, who entertains everyone with his cotton. Megumi, Mii, and Kana sit outside under a tree to eat their lunch. They notice Sakamoto juggling food in his hands with Kubota. Suddenly, Megumi recalls the day when she met Sakamoto for the first time in her life. She reveals that it was early February last year, on the day of the entrance exam. The test started and her hands were shivering with cold. Suddenly, she dropped her eraser, but Sakamoto caught it before it hit the floor. Afterwards, he started using it, erasing his own work like crazy, and returned it to her. Warmed up by the friction, the eraser stilled her frozen hands and she was able to breathe through the exam. Adding more to the ongoing situation, she reveals that eraser is still her good luck charm to this day. Following that, Mii decides to tell their story to everyone. She reveals that it was a stormy day she'll never forget, the day of the entrance ceremony. The terrible weather was blasting everyone on their way to school, and unfortunately, her favorite umbrella broke. That's when she noticed that Sakamoto's umbrella was already flipped inside out. At first, she pitied him, but later, she was fascinated by the spring shower created by him. Far from miserable, he had the look of a rain sommelier, and after that, the rain she thought had ruined her day started to look like it was congratulating her. Consequently, she has loved rainy days ever since. Lastly, Kana reveals the day before the entrance ceremony, she went to the cafeteria to get her textbooks. However, she had forgotten her bag, so he had to keep stacking the required books in her arms. She was unable to see where she was walking, and then she bumped into Sakamoto. Fortunately, she just tripped and fell, but he was holding her textbooks like a knight. Thanks to him, all of her textbooks escaped without a scratch, and it made her feel like she should take care of her things. Later, they cherish the beautiful memories and overhear Kubota talking about his first encounter with Sakamoto. He discloses that on the day of high school orientation, a weird tart popped on his finger, so he had to conceal it with a band-aid. Unfortunately, at some point it slipped off, but Sakamoto picked it for him. Afterwards, he put it back on his finger under a tree, but Sakamoto states that he doesn't remember it. The next day, Kubota spaces out while staring at Sakamoto and gets mocked by the teacher. Afterwards, it is revealed that during the parent-teacher meeting, Kubota's homeroom teacher, Kobayashi, praised his improvement. He gave all the credit to Sakamoto, who helped Kubota in everything. Kubota's mother, Shijumi, gets surprised as she believes she won't be able to meet Sakamoto again. Afterwards, Kubota got sick and Shijumi disguised herself as Kubota to meet Sakamoto at school. Later, during the cooking class, Sakamoto drinks her soup and praises it. Afterwards, before she's about to drink from the same plate he used, Ina steals the plate and runs away. Adding more to the ongoing situation, she strictly controls her urges during his change of clothes and leaves the room. The scene then shifts to running practice and Sakamoto starts running in the style of Darwin's evolutionary theory. Kukuta doesn't interrupt him and notices Shijumi keeping up with Sakamoto's running style. On the other hand, she tries her best to touch Sakamoto but collapses on the ground and her locket breaks into pieces. Sakamoto gives her a hand, but she gets up by herself and walks away. Later, Morita and Yasuda try to touch Shijumi's breasts, but Sakamoto saves her. He ties the ends of the curtains to shape them like huge breasts and successfully saves Shijumi. Shijumi realizes she's jeopardizing her relationship with Kubota and decides to end her obsession. As she's about to leave, Sakamoto hands her the locket that was broken. She notices that it has been fixed up by Sakamoto and afterwards bids him farewell. Later, Kubota gets better and Shijumi decides she'll focus on her motherhood from now on. Right before Christmas, two college guys offer Sakamoto to join them in a social party for adults. They inform Sakamoto it's a good chance for him to study human interaction. However, in reality, they are trying to set him up with a friend of their dates. Later, Sakamoto meets Miki, a second year at Take Women's, and her friends Yuka and Yu. The two men who invited Sakamoto are revealed to be Ryu and Kohai's second-year futsal players. Yuka asks Sakamoto why he's wearing a uniform, but Ryu intervenes. He tells them Sakamoto is in cosplay and takes care of the situation. Afterwards, while talking about careers, Sakamoto reveals he's going to aim for NASA. Furthermore, he states that some say that Earth will be only habitual to humans for another 1,000 years or so. Before that happens, he wishes to find a planet that can support human life and be directly involved in a mass migration project. Everyone gets surprised by his self-actualization and goals. Afterwards, Kovai proposes an idea to play a game. He shows them a hippo toy and states that each of them will push down a tooth in turn. The one who's bitten gets a penalty. The girls safely pass the game, however, Sakamoto gets bitten. Much to their surprise, he shows affection to the hippo toy and the girls start showing affection to him. Kovai gets annoyed and uses his trump card. He goes to the karaoke and starts singing with his beautiful voice, which attracts the girls' attention. Ryu intervenes and purposefully stops the music. Suddenly, Sakamoto starts playing the armed saxophone. Consequently, Kohai and Ryu realize that Sakamoto is the dark horse, so they decide to do something about him. Later, thanks to their courtesy, the waiter brings special cocktails for the ladies and a non-alcoholic cocktail for Sakamoto. Ryu advises Sakamoto that proper social etiquette is to chug a drink at once. Consequently, Sakamoto acts upon his advice, and afterwards, he reveals it's Sakamoto's turn to sing. It is revealed that the cocktail drank by Sakamoto was 100% Coca-Cola while he proceeds to the karaoke. Sakamoto starts singing a German opera song called The Devil. Ryu and Kohai wait for Sakamoto to burp in the middle, but he successfully manages to deliver a prestigious performance. Afterwards, all the girls go crazy for him, and he bids farewell to the guys. Later, Hayabusa's father asks him to accompany him for French cuisine tonight. He discloses that he wants to introduce someone to his son, and she might become his new mother. Hayabusa's father believes his children need a mother, and he agrees to go out with him. Afterwards, he informs Hayabusa that he has to pretend to be an heir to a rich family. Later, Hayabusa begs Sakamoto to teach him the ways of the bourgeoisie. However, Sakamoto reveals that he can't teach him proper etiquettes in a single day. Consequently, he tells Hayabusa to arrange a one-size L jacket since he has an idea. Afterwards, it is revealed that Sakamoto is using his hands while hiding himself in the jacket and Hayabusa is chewing the food. The lady praises his physique, but Hayabusa's father accidentally discloses that his son is a street fighter. Suddenly, Sakamoto starts playing with a napkin and prepares a bouquet out of it. Afterwards, Hayabusa gives the bouquet to the lady as a gift. The dinner starts, but Hayabusa refuses to eat the snails as they disgust him. However, to provide a mother for his siblings, he forces himself to eat the snails. The dinner ends and the lady praises Hayabusa. Afterwards, Hayabusa leaves to give them privacy and later finds his father surrounded by goons. Hayabusa switches positions with Sakamoto and effortlessly defeats everyone. Then his father reveals that the lady is an extortionist and Hayabusa gets furious. Sakamoto tells them a scary story about a strange man whose body transformed because of eating French cuisine. Consequently, the extortionist and the goons run away while Hayabusa's father faints. In the end, Hayabusa concludes it's better to make up for what the other lacks. During winter, Sakamoto tells Kubota this is the first time he has ever seen snow on the ground. Kubota realizes that he doesn't know much about Sakamoto, like where he was born, his family, and things like that. Afterwards, he bumps into a Chan and his group. Action reveals that he lived his life in the Hokkaido mountains until 4th grade. Consequently, he decides to give him a thorough lecture on how to play in the snow. Firstly, he falls on the snow to show him how to create his body's outline in it. Then Sakamoto effortlessly covers up Action's outline, which shocks everyone. Mario concludes Sakamoto's snow outline looks like a diagram of a human body while Action gets demotivated. The next day, he decides to teach Sakamoto how to make a snowman. After that, he provides him instructions and successfully constructs a snowman, but Sakamoto is unimpressed. Meanwhile, Sakamoto builds a 9-headed snowman which blows everyone's mind and Action walks away. Action gets all gloomy since Sakamoto surpassed him effortlessly. Afterwards, Fukase appears out of nowhere to console Action and advises him to fight Sakamoto one-on-one. Fukase believes Action wants Sakamoto to acknowledge him, and later, Action challenges Sakamoto to a one-on-one snowball fight. The first person who gets the opponent with even one snowball will win. The fight begins and Sakamoto successfully gains the upper hand. He starts throwing snowballs at Action like a Gatling gun, forcing him to stay on the defensive side. Their battle reaches a stalemate and Action reaches his limit. Action notices Sakamoto packing something in a snowball. He rolls the packed snowball towards Action and it starts melting. Action believes the snowball contains a bomb and gets scared, but later calms himself. Afterwards, he prepares for a surprise attack, but Sakamoto defeats him. It is revealed that he defeated Action with a hand warmer. Action apologizes and walks away out of embarrassment. Later, he begins crying and suddenly Fukase visits him. The scene then shifts to class 1 to 2 where Megumi shows the yearly photos of her classmates to them. Meanwhile, Mai shows an aesthetic picture of Sakamoto to everyone. Megumi reveals that thanks to Sakamoto, everyone started placing their umbrellas in the stands gently like flowers. Afterwards, Kana finds another flashy picture of Sakamoto during the marathon race. Meanwhile, Kenkin and Mario inform Action of an emergency meeting to be held. However, Action requests them to leave him alone for a while. Meanwhile, the meeting begins and Hayabusa informs everyone that Fukase will not be graduating this year. Consequently, they'll be in the same grade as him starting in spring. Maruyama reveals Fukase's IQ is 180. He was treated as a prodigy in middle school. Hayabusa agrees since he has never beaten Fukase at tic-tac-toe. At the end, Hayabusa advises the delinquents to gather one thing they won't ever give up. Meanwhile, Megumi shows the pictures of their beach trip to the class. Afterwards, Akin steals a picture and walks away. Later, he meets Fukase, who brainwashes him into thinking that Sakamoto is his real enemy. Consequently, Akin burns his picture with Sakamoto. During the graduation ceremony, the principal invites Sakamoto for a farewell speech. Afterwards, he presents an old volleyball as a memento to the crowd. Then he proceeds congratulating everyone on their graduation, and later Action arrives with a metal bat. He goes up on stage and Kakuta interrupts him. However, Akin hits him with his metal bat and burns some of his hair. He proceeds to ignore everyone while Fukase stops the principal from interrupting. Hayabusa proceeds to step in, but Sakamoto tells him not to. Afterwards, Akin rushes at Sakamoto with his bat, but Sakamoto gracefully dodges him. He believes charging straight into the obstacle is a fine example of stupidity. The crowd realizes busting Action is just a part of Sakamoto's act, while Kubota believes he means to turn this situation into a farewell address. The management begins applauding Sakamoto's grand presentation while Akin continues to attack him. Afterwards, Sakamoto climbs on a rafter, simultaneously dodging Action's swings. Suddenly, Action falls, but Sakamoto successfully manages to grab his hand. Filled with anger, Action starts beating Sakamoto's arm with his bat. The crowd gets uncomfortable and Action vents out his anger at Sakamoto. He believes Sakamoto has always looked down upon him and starts crying. The beating continues and Sakamoto bears the pain without letting go of his arm. Sakamoto advises him to believe in his friends, but Akin forces his hand to slip. Still, Sakamoto extends himself with his pants and catches him. This restores Action's faith in Sakamoto, and Sakamoto concludes his speech. Later, Hayabusa uses first aid to help Sakamoto, while Action sincerely apologizes to him. He reveals that Fukase was the one who put him up to this vicious act. Hayabusa's delinquents get scared and Sakamoto decides to visit the nurse's office to stop the bleeding. There he meets Fukase, who reveals he has no intention of graduating this year. Comparing high school life with the sea, he reveals the students dive into the sea in search of new things. He believes the poor graduating students only rely on hope, which is a deception. Watching that scene from the front row every year is the greatest pleasure for Fukase, so he prepares to head back in the hall before the graduates leave the room. Sakamoto informs him he dive into the sea to search for new opportunities instead of staying in the same place. Meanwhile, Hayabusa decides to end Fukase's evil schemes. Later, the graduates prepare to leave the room and Fukase observes them from the front. Suddenly, Hayabusa enters the hall and congratulates Fukase on his graduation. Fukase gets confused and all of a sudden, Sakamoto uses his secret technique, knee destruction, to distort his balance. Fukase falls and Hayabusa rolls him through his delinquents to throw him out of the hall. Later, it is revealed that the graduation ceremony safely ended and Achan's assault was written off as part of Sakamoto's farewell address, so he wasn't punished. Above all, Fukase stopped showing up to school after the embarrassing incident, but he's been seen frequently at the local beach holding a surfboard. On the day of the closing ceremony, Sakamoto reveals he has received an invitation from a certain space development agency. Therefore, he will be crossing the ocean and will be participating in a project he's been interested in for some time with the goal of migrating mankind to Mars. Suddenly, Sarah hits him with a pie, but Sakamoto easily dodges him. Afterwards, everyone in the class starts throwing pie at him, but Sakamoto successfully evades every one of them. Before leaving with a pie in his hand, he meets Hayabusa and bids him farewell. His classmates thank him for leaving them with good memories, and afterwards, he proceeds to the gate. There he meets Kukuda, who fails to recognize him because of his face covered with pie. He asks him who he is, to which he replies, "Haven't you heard? I'm Sakamoto." That's all for today. If you enjoyed our video, give us a like and subscribe to our channel to never miss an update from us.